Great. So now that you're all sitting down, could you all rise? I'm going to ask Brian McGuire to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. So welcome. The forums are always one of my favorite meetings because I just don't have a lot of work to do today. We're going to leave that work to the fine candidates that have thankfully stepped forward to submit to this process and eventually run for office. And I can't say it often enough how lucky we are to have people step up for and do their civic duty. So I'm going to give them a round of applause right off the bat. So these forums, for the unfamiliar, are set up for the purpose of letting you hear directly from the candidates on some of the issues of the day in Lower Merion and Narberth. Tonight is our first of two forums. Tonight is devoted to the Board of Commissioners and Narberth Borough Council. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Susan Hunt. Susan is our chair of the subcommittee that governs issues of policy. And she has really put a lot of work in this, along with her committee, to run these forums. So I want to thank her and invite her up to the podium.
Thank you, Jonathan. And welcome again to tonight's candidate forum for Lower Merion Board of Commissioners and Narberth Council. As Jonathan said, I'm Susan Hunt, and I'll be moderating our forum tonight, in which we will start with time for statements from our candidates in uncontested races, and then move on to our question and answer period for our candidates in contested Lower Merion wards and our Narberth Council candidates. As Jonathan said, just a reminder, our next forum on Wednesday, February 27th, will be for our school board of directors back here beginning at 7:30 p.m. So a few words before we begin. The purpose of tonight's candidate forum is to provide time for our candidates to express their views and opinions in a structured question and answer format in order for us to better understand each candidate's position on a variety of issues of interest to the committee and help our committee members develop an informed choice. The process of developing the format, composing and organizing questions for this evening's forum was done by DCLMN committee volunteers. So I'd like to especially thank Jim Spear, Adrian Seltzer, Leanne Smith, Stephanie Schell, Ivan Haskell, and Mitchell Rothman for all the work they did in preparing tonight's event. Questions were also submitted to me by email by DCLMN committee members, and all questions were reviewed and considered by our subcommittee members for tonight's forum. So briefly, to review our format tonight with our candidates. First, we will begin with our candidates in wards 1, 3, 5, and 7, who will open with their statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes to make your statements. Then we will turn to our candidates here from wards 9 and 13 in Lower Merion and our Narberth Borough Council candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make their opening statements, and then we will move into our question and answer period. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer 4 questions each. Each question will be directed to groupings of 2 or 3 candidates at a time, and each of you will have up to 2 minutes to provide your response. I have a note for this evening. Vanessa Bender, who was going to be with us, has decided not to run, so we have a little extra time tonight, maybe. So if time permits, we have added 1 more question that will be directed for everyone, the same question with a 1-minute response time. So Stephanie's going to keep you guys on track for time. Afterward, after the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute to make their closing statements, and we'll adjourn the forum at that point. Okay, Stephanie. Stephanie will be keeping time for us tonight. She's seated right there. Stephanie's going to hold up a card indicating when you have 1 minute, then 30 seconds, then 10 seconds left to respond. And I don't know what you do when they're supposed to be done, but we'll adhere to that, yeah. So when she holds up the final card, you must enter comments at that time. So last, there are a few rules, a little bit more to go over before we begin. Tonight is question and answer format only. Candidates may not interject or comment during another candidate's response time. We've tried to pack in as much as possible tonight, so it's very important that all candidates please adhere to timeframes allotted for each opening and closing statement and all of your questions. For us, candidates will not take any questions from the floor. However, you certainly could access candidates to ask specific questions at another time. We have some other things. Okay, I'm sure we're all ready to get started. So I want to begin by introducing our candidates from wards 1, 3, 5, and 7 to come up to the podium and make their statements. So we'll begin with Dan Bernheim from Ward 1.
Thank you, Susan. I feel like the warm-up act. So, first of all, I'm going to take some of my precious, 2 minutes and thank Jonathan, who I know is here. He and I communicate regularly, and he does a lot. Jonathan, thank you all for I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank each and every one of you that are here today for what it is that you do. This happens to be the 3rd time that I have the opportunity to stand before you and seek your endorsement for being a township commissioner. And I take nothing uncontested, I take nothing for granted and nothing lightly whatsoever. And either do I suspect, do any of you. Recently, we went through the absolute nonsense of a federal government shutdown, and I suspect that few, if any of us, really were directly impacted. But if you shut down the township, you'll notice it when you walk right out your front door. Your streets aren't plowed, your streets aren't paved, your garbage isn't picked up, your sewers aren't taken care of, and that list goes on and on. And it is because of what we do here on the Board of Commissioners and what you do by selecting people is very, very important, and I appreciate that task. We are embarking, as you all know, on one of the biggest undertakings in a decade, and that is the rewrite of our zoning code in order to keep it consistent with our comprehensive plan to preserve our township in the manner in which that we like our community to appear itself, as well as to make sure that the modernization is done appropriately and it's something that is consistent without a great cost to our residents. And we do that without missing a hitch. We have instituted plans for traffic safety, for storm water management, for police and community relations, and this list goes on, but I've seen the 10-second sign. And in that 10 seconds, all that I would like to do is to ask you, or to tell you, I appreciate ever so greatly your support for being able to continue this endeavor with my distinguished colleagues, many of whom are here, and many of whom will soon be elected. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Michael McKeon from Ward 3.
Hello, my name is Mike McKeon. I'm the current commissioner of Ward 3. I grew up in Penwyn. I lived in Wynwood, Ardmore, and I currently live in Ballackinwood with my wife Jen and 2 teenage daughters who go to Lower Merion High School. I favor a policy as a commissioner of what I call smart development, which is trying to get things in the township and the community that we want as citizens and not getting stuff that we don't want. So one quick example of this for me would be, there was a gigantic apartment complex that had been on the books for Rock Hill Road for almost 15 years or so, over 300 apartment units. So I'm happy to report to all of you that this January, the Board of Commissioners voted unanimously to kill the apartment project. So that project is gone, and now it's really up to us. The harder part is to try to put something in there that we like, and that's where the zoning laws come into play. So That's part of smart development, trying to change the laws and trying to get stuff in there that benefits everyone as a whole. I think it's very important for the Board of Commissioners and the school board to try to get along together. We are almost all from the same political party. We have a lot more in common than different. And I think that we need to find ways to just try to come to basically solve problems instead of creating them. I do a newsletter every 2 to 3 weeks to residents. I try to be as candid and open as possible and dump as many facts in there. I know a lot of you get it. And I try to really put that out there because I think it's very important to have an informed populace. There are a lot of very important issues in the township as we look ahead. Walkability, the environment, general safety, and I look forward to hopefully representing Ward 3 for another 4 years afterwards. I'm very humbled to be here before you, and I would be even more humbled to have your endorsement for the upcoming election. Thank you.
Next we have Ray Courtney from Ward 5.
Hi, everyone. I look at this room tonight and I see a lot of people who worked hard for progressive candidates and progressive causes, and who I've been honored to work alongside these past 2 years, and I'm humbled appearing before you tonight, so thank you for having me. I also need to thank our outgoing Commissioner Cheryl Gilbert, who's been a dedicated public servant for 15 years. She's been very generous with her time, answering my questions, explaining the nuances of issues before the board. Her resignation leaves some big shoes to fill, and I'm going to work very hard to fill them. All right, so what is a software engineer doing up here? 2 years ago, we witnessed the inauguration of the worst president this country has ever had. I was dumbfounded. What is wrong with our political system that it produced such a negative outcome, and how did the Democrats who have better ideas lose? Like any engineer, when I don't understand something, I Googled it. I want to hear directly what the plan would be, so I Googled, where are the Democrats in Pennsylvania? That search led me here. That search led me to Indivisible Lower Merion, and it led me to Indivisible Narberth and beyond. It led me to the North Ardmore Civic Association and the Wingwood Civic Association, where I'm a board member. And it led me to Andy Gavin's campaign, where I immersed myself in local issues. I could help Andy get elected over a 12-year Republican incumbent. And I learned that I personally can have the greatest effect focusing on local political issues. Even though I was glued to national news, local government has a far greater impact on our day-to-day lives. As an engineer, I love working on complex systems. I love working on complicated problems. And that's why I've attended every Board of Commissioners meeting for the last 8 months. As a Ward 5 Commissioner, I have 2 primary focuses: the pace of development, in particular, how it's affecting Ardmore, and 2, battling the effects of climate change. And when it comes down to it, those 2 go hand in hand. Because if you ask me what's the right pace of development for Lower Merion, my first answer is, it's the pace that's environmentally sustainable. It's a pace that will allow us to become carbon neutral within the next decade. Thank you for your time tonight, and I hope you'll
Finally, we have Sean Whalen from Ward 7.
Good evening. I don't know many of you personally, but I very much look forward to meeting as many of you as I can over the next election cycle. I'm going to keep this short because a minute now doesn't mean much, but at 9:30 it's going to mean a whole heck of a lot. So I am currently the Shortridge Civic Association president. I'm also the co-chair of the Lower Merion Planning Commission. And I am a proud parent of 2 kids at BC Middle School and 2 at Merion. So I am spread all over the place, and I'm excited to be here instead of coaching basketball, which somebody in the back is going to heckle me about in a second, because I was supposed to be coaching his daughter as well. So the one point that I think I would like to bring up to everyone, because I believe you all have our materials, is I am a zoning and land use attorney. That is what I do. I do it here in the township, is where my offices are. Almost my entire practice is in Philadelphia. Now, many people, I think, have already raised the question of why do we want a developer's attorney on the commission board. I would say this is the single reason why you want me on the board. I don't represent developers in our township. This is my backyard. I want to make sure we can keep it as wonderful and on the pace that we're going toward keeping it that way. Now, I can use those skills and this stuff that I live and breathe every day to help us transition. I don't know if any of you know this, but Philadelphia about 6, 7 years ago actually wrote its first in 60-plus years, its first new zoning code. So I've lived through the process of a new zoning code. I've seen what works, I've seen what doesn't work, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that here in our township and helping us work forward with that development. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our candidates on the panel tonight. Starting right here to my right is Ricky Guerra from Ward 9. We have David McConnell, also from Ward 9. Next to him is Gilda Kramer from Ward 13. Michael Leibowitz, also Ward 13. And then we have our candidates for Narberth Council, beginning with Fred Bush, Mona Elshop, Robert McGreevy, and finally Bob Weisbord. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in and have our candidates begin with their opening statements. Starting again from my near right and moving all the way down to the left, beginning with Ricky Guerra.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ricky Guerra. I'm running to be the next commissioner of Ward 9, which is Ballard-Kinwood. And you want me to stand up? Good. I really do appreciate that everybody's here to listen about the issues, here to introduce themselves as the candidates, so that you can make an informed decision come March about who you want to endorse and who you want to make decisions about our township. Now, you certainly want somebody that's going to be in line with the goals. I think that's a very easy answer. But I think you also want somebody that's not scared to voice their opinion, even though there may be strong opposition in the room. You want somebody that's going to bring ideas to the table, new ideas, and not just complaints. And you certainly want somebody that has been active and been engaged in trying to solve the problems that face our township, not just over the past 5 weeks, not just over the past 5 months, but over the past 5 years. That person's me. I moved here in 2014 with my family who's all sitting in the back, and my 3 little kids. But ever since I've been here, I've made use of the time. I've been actively engaged. I'm currently the vice president of the neighborhood club. I'm the secretary of the federation. And if you ask anybody from either one of those organizations, I'm very active in it. I volunteer. I've coached many times for Lower Merion soccer for my kids, not always well, but I try. And I volunteer for my church, St. John's in Ballard-Kinwood. And in my spare time, I also do pro bono work for people in the Hispanic community as well as the deaf community, because that's where I was raised. And so tonight, I really am seeking the honor of your endorsement, and I hope that you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. David.
Thank you, Sue. Hi, my name is David McComb. This is the first time I've hold this up. How about that? Is that better? Okay, how about that?
Please stand.
Can we stand? Okay.
Let him use the podium.
Okay. I'm Dave McComb, and I've lived in Ballard for 21 years with my wife Francie, who's seated over there next to Sam Abaum. We've been involved in Ballard-Kinwood activities. We've been involved with the neighborhood club, the trail, the Lower Merion Choir Club. We've been involved in all of those things. The past 7 years, I've served on the Shade Tree Commission, the Lower Merion Shade Tree Commission. My kids say Dad's a tree nerd, and I suppose I am, because I can go on. I could use up more than my 2 minutes telling about the value of trees, which are important. But I think I approach Lower Merion with an appreciation for what we have, for the assets we have, and a recognition that we need to pay attention to where we're going. We've had good leadership in the past. One of the issues that I think is of concern to everybody is City Avenue, what's happening with City Avenue. City Avenue is what makes Ward 9 different from any other ward in Lower Merion Township. It's a huge economic asset to Lower Merion. It contributes a huge amount in terms of school district taxes and business and mercantile taxes. So what we do with City Avenue affects everybody in the township. The issues I believe in are keeping the township green, walkability, density, height restrictions, all those things. And everybody knows there's an issue with traffic, so we have to pay attention to that. One of the things I've heard in talking to people is we don't need any more apartment buildings in Lower Merion. I think we've hit that point where we're all sort of in agreement on that. That doesn't mean that we abandon the idea of making Ballard Avenue and City Avenue more vital and contributing to the well-being of the community with better retail, better businesses. So Francie and I, we're proud to be residents of Ballard. We've supported the progressive ideals of the state and national platform. We work to elect local candidates, and I hope I can get your support for Ward 9. Thank you.
Friends and neighbors, you know the dedication, hard work, creativity, and responsiveness that I have brought to the Democratic Committee for the last 16 years, including almost 9 years as your elected vice chair for the Eastern Wards. I will bring these qualities, my analytical training and skills as an experienced attorney, as well as strong relationships with many elected officials, to my service as Ward 13 Commissioner. Governing the township is complex. The township's finances have to remain as strong as they are, while we invest in infrastructure, including our sidewalks, parks, roads, and stormwater projects. We also have to provide for public safety, and we need to slow the proliferation of new apartment buildings in legal ways, not with an illegal moratorium, and revitalize our business districts. As Commissioner, I will be fiscally responsible and make sure that the township provides needed services and invests in maintaining our quality of life. I will provide leadership for progressive government as Commissioner. One of my goals is to address on the local level issues on which our federal government is failing to show vision right now. The two particular areas of interest are environmental and social services, and I will also be a strong advocate for improved public transportation, including expansion of our Kingwood train line. I am seeking to serve the township with the support of our Commissioner Brian McGuire, our two former commissioners from Ward 13, Bruce Reed and David Sonnenschein, as well as all of the current Ward 13 committee people. I hope that I will earn your support as well. Thank you.
Is this working? Yes, very good. Good evening. My name is Mike Leibowitz, and I'm also running for Township Commissioner in the 13th Ward, and I appreciate all of you being here. I especially appreciate the folks who aren't committee people who came out this evening. I think that the more people who are engaged in this process, the more people who are engaged in our party, that is what's going to continue to build and enhance the strength that Lower Merion Democratic Party with our partners in Norwood have really developed. A little bit about myself. So I live in Merion Station. I'm the president of the Merion Park Civic Association. I'm also the president of our township's Affordable Housing Corporation, which is a nonprofit corporation that is chartered to develop and support affordable housing, which includes workplace housing, housing for seniors, housing with people for people with disabilities. I've served on that board, and I've served as president of that board for a number of years. I'm also the vice president of our Union Fire Association, which is one of those backbones of our community that has volunteers and has all sorts of events and helps make our community great. I've been pegged, I think a little unfairly, as being anti-development in this race, and I'm not anti-development. What I am for is development that is within the scale of our suburban community, that it comes at a pace that makes sense for us. It takes into account our schools and the overcrowding that's taking place there, and also makes our development smarter. And so trails, bike lanes, making sure that when there is development, we, the neighbors, are getting the give-backs that are part of that give-and-take process to make our community better. I've been in this community my whole life. I grew up in Balkenwood. My great-grandparents moved here originally, and to tell you how times have changed, they needed a straw buyer because they wouldn't sell to Jewish people back then. You know, my hope is that not only looking back several generations, but I can work for Lower Merion looking forward several generations. I thank you.
Hi, I'm Fred Bush, and I'm running for Narberth Borough Council to help preserve Narberth's small-town walkable environment as it navigates a wave of new development and moves toward a greener future. So I'm really here because of Narberth's playgrounds. When I moved here, my daughter wanted to go to the playground every day after school, every day, rain or shine. So I ended up getting involved with the Recreation Board. I'm now chair of the Recreation Board, and that's helped me become more familiar with Borough Council, work with Borough staff on a number of green space projects. I'm also lead coordinator for Narberth 2050, which is a local sustainability group. When Narberth Borough Council decided to look at the issue of single-use plastics, they reached out to Narberth 2050. So I helped draft a white paper about the plastics legislation throughout the country. And as council worked with borough staff to craft the bill, I participated in the process, and as a group we helped to mobilize the community in favor of it. And I think it showed us that there really is a lot of community support here in Narberth for sustainability and environmental issues. So I hope to work on that as a member of council. I'd like to work with council to build on the plastics ordinance. I think it's super exciting. We're the first community here in Pennsylvania to pass single-use plastics ordinance. As all my compatriots from Lower Merion have been saying, the development is a big issue. I think, as well in Narberth, I support more people downtown near transit and near our businesses. But I think that Borough Council has an opportunity to nudge development in a more sustainable direction. And in order to keep our streets quieter and calmer in the midst of this development, we should also prioritize bicycle development and fixing our sidewalks, which are in really poor condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Hi, I'm Mona Elshak. I'm going to do this seated because I'm having a little vertigo right now. So I'm a public school teacher. I'm a mother. I'm a citizen advocate for secure elections. We moved here 11 years ago, just before my son was born, and it was a dream come true for my family. Because we always wanted to live in a front porch walking community where neighbors look out for each other. I'm running for Borough Council because I want to use my skills to strengthen our community and ensure a vibrant future for Narberth. So if you want to know what makes me tick, it's two things: serving others and building community. If you look at my resume, it's what I've done my whole life. After college, I chose service, working at a nonprofit called Homes for the Homeless. After earning my law degree and my master in social work, I chose service and community building, doing community organizing work in low-income neighborhoods in Philadelphia, and later on with Pennsylvania mushroom workers. For the past 16 years, I chose service and community building, teaching history and government at Conestoga High School and at TE Middle School, helping students to achieve their potential and challenging them to be better citizens of their community. So, why service and community building? Because that's what gives life meaning, right? Imagine if we all treated each other with a little more love and compassion every day. Think what our community and our world would look like. We can bring out the best in each other by choosing to see the best in each other. I try to approach everyone that way. It's why I work well with so many different kinds of people. It's why I love listening to multiple perspectives. Like I tell my students, good ideas come from being able to disagree with each other respectfully. So communities are made of people. They need citizens and leaders who listen to each other, who find common ground, and who work together to get things done. Narberth has so many amazing volunteers, like right next to me, who keep this place running. And I envision an even stronger Narberth with even more of us working together. And if elected, I will bring that dedication to working on Borough Council. Thank you very much.
Reedy. I've lived in Narberth for 8 years with my wife and 2 sons, and we're on the south side. And I'm happy to be here with 3 terrific neighbors, and we all know each other in Narberth, and that's what makes it a great place to live. It also makes the scale of our democracy very inviting, open, and accessible, and I see it as kind of an ongoing democratic experiment that's rewarding to participate in and to model for our children. For me, being on council, I was appointed a year ago to fill the seat of Marlene Richmond, and that was shortly after the President made comments about Haitian immigrants. I'm a college professor, I teach immigration history, and that was a breaking point for me. And when there was an opening on the council, I decided to step forward. So I've learned a lot this year. It's a very collaborative process working with Bob Weisbord, Gigi Tubman-Moffett, the other members of the council. And because of the great work that the long-standing members have done, so especially Aaron Muedrich, Gigi Tubman-Moffett, and Bob Weisbord, we're at a turning point in the borough so that we have a fully professional staff. And this means that we can take on new challenges. So I see the next few years as critical, especially for climate change, which is the issue that I care most about. And I would like to see us put in place a 10-year climate action plan to reduce carbon emissions in line with the UN report. Narberth has done good things, as Fred mentioned on the environment. We did the plastics ordinance, and I think the way in which we're able to mobilize indicates what we can do on an even larger scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
It's hard to be more well-spoken than my colleagues here from Narberth. Good evening, I'm Bob Weisbord from Narberth Borough, 7-year incumbent of the Narberth Borough Council. Last month I had the privilege of interviewing with Jonathan Shapiro and Mitch Rothman, my first time meeting them, and 7 members of the candidate recruitment committee. And I just truly appreciated the thought-provoking questions they asked, and they left me with a clear impression that they take the stewardship of this electoral body very seriously, conscientiously, and I appreciate all of you being here tonight. Also, those of you who are not committee members, to come out and support this electoral process. I'm asking for your endorsement. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a biography. I was born a couple.
Please hold the mic closer to your mouth. Thank you, sir.
Sorry. I was born just 2 blocks from here in Marion. I went to on Glenwood Road. I spent my weekly allowance at the Napes in downtown Narberth. I rode bikes with my sister in the Memorial Day Parade, and I enjoyed many, many, many years on the Narberth playgrounds. That was my early life. My first real employment was at the Narberth Cheese Company, where many of your children may actually work as students at Lower Marion High School or Harriman High School. I also went to Lower Marion High School. In 1997, after college and graduate school, I fulfilled a lifelong dream actually to settle in Narberth. That was I set the bar pretty high. I wanted to live in Narberth. And I wanted to live here because I think we have an exceptional opportunity to participate in our own civic life. And is that 1 minute?
30 seconds.
Wow. Speak really slowly. In any case, I'd like your endorsement. I've been council member for 7 years. I was a planning commission member since 2006. I was Narberth's first Democratic judge of elections and won in 2005. And I've been a volunteer of the Narberth Civic Association, the first treasurer. I was a founding member of the Narberth Havaram, their first treasurer. I've been involved as a volunteer in this community for many years, and I have your endorsement. I just want to say one more thing. If you don't endorse me as a 7-year incumbent, I would ask that you please endorse 3 Narberth candidates for council. It's important. Your endorsement is important for our electoral process, for the integrity of it, and especially in this year.
Thank you.